Hello, everybody. Welcome to TF, the free episode. Sorry it's a little late this week. We've had some illness in the team, but we are here and we are ready to talk about some of the things that are going on. We will not be talking about all of the things that are going on because November has specifically asked us to save the Graham Linehan court transcripts for when she's on
Which
next.
is the most important thing that is going on in, like, you know, the grand scheme of things. Not even joking, there are like people who are just you know what, like I'm gonna betray November in the, you know, in a way where like there will sort of be you know, the end of this arc of betrayal will be like me and November, like, you know, battling it out in our mechas and sort of like having emotion, like doing emotional monologues. But
you're gonna be Kaoru to her Unit 1.
But what I'm gonna say, I was actually thinking about. No, I'm not. We're not doing anime chat today. You know, you can message me if you wanted to see what I think about. No, what I was gonna say was that actually I feel kind of sorry for Graham in a very limited sense because events have basically overshadowed like his whole like tweet debacle, and I think that he really did feel like, oh, this is my moment because like J.K. Rowling is ignoring me. I'm sort of alienating. I've alienated a lot of the sort of like people that are kind of tangentially on my side. There's a few people who like have sort of said no, who have like, you know, who are like TERFs, who are like, oh yeah, like, you know, I'm sort of I feel like Graham sort of lost it a little bit. I really felt that like, you know, his sort of like tweet debacle was kind of, he was viewing that as like a way of maybe coming back to like sort of a mainstream TERFdom, and it just got overshadowed by events. To which I will say, but like you and me both, Graham, like, you know, it's a tough business sort of making content in this time, and you know, I feel you in this very very limited way.
If we're skipping Linehan chat, I'm just going to real quick go into my notes here and cross out what I got 7 pages of GoldenEye big head mode jokes, and another 5 of NBA Jam big head mode notes. So I'm just going to cross all those out and just scroll down to what else we're going to talk about.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So sorry about that. Also, joining as our regular substitute, it is, of course, No Gods, No Mayors, and the world of graphic novels is Mattie Lubchansky.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for having me. I know that you've got a very strict one trans woman in, one trans woman out policy, and you have to get me on. I know. We're all waiting on you, Riley, but that's a bit for a different show.
Yeah, that's for a different show. But then what are we going to do with the policy? No, then Nova and I are going to have to battle it out in mechas.
Yeah.
No,
the mecha budget for the. By the way, you better get on the Patreon because the mecha budget for this show is about to inflate significantly when Riley starts taking E.
Well, it's about to double, or at least, or maybe even triple. No, look, hi everybody, it's TF. And look, there's so much to talk about. We're not going to get to all of it today, and this is going to be one of those 2-parter episodes where in part 1 we're going to talk about the news, and I found an article I want to read, and in part 2. I speak with Paul Heron, the solicitor in charge of the Public Interest Law Centre, who's currently pursuing 2 legal cases against, in the UK, one against British-Israeli dual citizens who it is alleged committed war crimes in Gaza, and is also pursuing action against the UK Lawyers for Israel, which acts as like an organization that like will send you a threatening letter if you put up like art by Palestinians in the hospital or wear like a watermelon badge or whatever. And so he and I talk at some length about those 2 cases and what it means to use the law against the interests of the state, so to speak. And so that's in the second half. It's a conversation I've been trying to have for a while, and it's one I was looking forward to having. I hope you enjoy it as well. And then all of the stuff going on in the UK, the Unite the Kingdom march, Elon Musk's encouragement of same, Paul Ovenden's firing. Hey, maybe they should have taken the Ford report seriously, or this embarrassing thing wouldn't have happened. I don't know. The ongoing Mandelson fallout, the usual Britpol Michigas, that's all going to be in the episode on Thursday. So that's a lot of stuff's going in the next episode pile. But there are a few things I want to talk about today before we get to this article that I really want to read because I've been sitting on it for a bit. Donald Trump. The state visit is happening, and Starmer has gotten Donald Trump to personally take a personal liking to him, which has been useful, I suppose. We are still paying higher tariffs. We still have gotten no foreign policy concessions. And Starmer, by all the people who love Trump in the UK, Starmer is still considered to be a deep state pedophile communist. So masterful gambit, sir. At the cost of alienating everybody who could have liked you, you have gained nothing. Congratulations.
Well, he's given it all up for one catty guy to like him. I mean, you know, when you meet somebody who's kind of like very arch and like mean and you want to impress them, he's just going for that. He really wants to just make sure that this guy likes him. And I understand.
Yeah.
That's an understandable impulse.
So when this is now reporting from the Telegraph. This just happened to come out. There's some investigative journalism they did on the Starmer-Trump relationship. And one line jumped out, which is like explaining why Trump personally likes Starmer. And one of the big reasons is, quote, when Starmer and Trump talk on the phone, Starmer lets Trump do 90% of the talking.
That makes a lot more sense, because I was trying to imagine in my mind's ears what a conversation between these two men could possibly be like. Mm-hmm. And it makes so much more sense that if it's just Trump talking, mm-hmm. and then every minute or two, Keir Starmer going, mm-hmm. Like I don't like what else are they what else would they possibly be saying to each other?
Wow. Tell me more about how the mother from Melrose Place was unfair to you in 1993.
Like I guess you know what I just realized is that there's often great overlap between what is on the West End and what is on Broadway. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're just talking about cats.
Well, the thing is, remember, Keir Starmer has no inner life. He doesn't have a favorite book or play or song. He doesn't dream. So he's going to have to.
He did say that. Yeah, he said that he doesn't dream.
That. I don't dream. Yeah.
It's also like, it's a very weird thing because, like, as people have mentioned, like, when he was sort of running and when he was like kind of like the up and comer, he did do interviews where he did mention like he had a favorite book and he did like and the thing is, like, it's still like, it is very clear that he does have a life. Like, he is interested in football at the very least. And like, whoever, I mean, I guess it's Morgan McSweeney, but like his advisors have all basically told him like, yeah, you are not allowed to have a personality. And that's going to be like the key, right? The key is that like, you're basically going to be like the blank slate. And yeah, masterful gambit, I guess, in this one instance where it's just like, you're talking to a guy who like basically has no interest in any other person except for himself anyway.
He can only admit to his new best friend, Donald Trump, that he really thought Nicole Scherzinger's Tony for Sunset Boulevard was well-deserved, even if the show itself is kind of not memorable from a song's perspective.
He's had to be like coached by Hammerstein.
Like, I wonder if they've like talked about Robert Pattinson. Because like Trump had an obsession with Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart for like a long time, right?
That's true, and he's British.
And it was really strange. It was this really strange obsession, which like I always found very like amusing. And it was very like, oh, okay, this isn't just a guy who's just like he's interested in like the minutia of like gossip culture, like the low end of it, like the fact that he was so invested in like the sort of fallout of like the Twilight crew and everything. And like, you know, Robert Pattinson is kind of like an up and comer. He's very, sure. I think he's a very good actor. I like most of his stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he was great in this film called Tenet. I don't know if any of you have seen it. I'm
going to watch it one day.
I wonder if they still talk about Robert Pattinson.
Yeah. Do you think Trump's like every 5 seconds being like, can you put the Pattinson kid on? Like he just thinks everyone is in one big room.
Put that Pattinson kid on, but I want him to do the voice from Twilight. It sounds better on him than British. I think of him as American, but wait, look, I know Mandelson from the island, but I think Pattinson could be ambassador. I think he could. Starmer's just like, I promise I'm a blank space, and I'll write your name.
Fuck's sake.
That's fun.
Fuck's sake.
Anyway,
all right.
Isn't that fun? Look, anyway. So this is from David Lammy, who was interviewed for this article. It says, Trump appeared to respond to Kier's understated manner and the fact that he was keen to listen. Just basically just like, you're blank. You're nothing. You're just like, you can just imprint qualities on me, Mr. President. He also, they're very, very amusing because like Trump is arriving for this state visit today, right? Which is the high honor you can get for meeting the fucking lizard people in charge of this place. Formally in charge of this place, if not practically, but that Starmer like spent days practicing pulling the invitation from the king out of his top pocket and handing it to someone playing Trump, which, in my view, is late Byzantine Empire stuff. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Sorry, I just like practicing being a human in the mirror.
Or like, because he had to get all the angles exactly right. He had to hand it not too far, not too close. This is like...
I'm skipping over the part where he has to get an invitation from the king to give to the president. I'm not even going to think about that. I'm not even going to talk about how fucking stupid that is.
Oh, yes.
But the idea that he has to practice the angles on pulling an envelope out of his own pocket is like, yeah, this is I'm Jewish and I can say this. This is a lizard man wreathed in human skin.
This is someone who's they're calling the most easy-mannered, normal guy ever. And like, but no, I'm literally serious. So this is Byzantine Empire stuff. This is like, Starmer is a provincial governor practicing how to be a better human footstool for like John Palaiologos. Like that. This is like, you go back to our episode on the late Byzantine Empire we did with Patrick Wyman. I think this fits very well. And also, this is like the moment where Starmer is being sold to the international public because he can't be sold to the British public anymore because everyone hates what he's done as this like leader of the center left. And it's like, what do you mean? He is some grand leader of the center left. His whole international project has been cozying up to Donald Trump, who is currently like, or at least whose flunkies are currently jumping up and down, excited that they got their Reichstag fire. Another moment before we go on to that, Starmer also privately briefed Trump on developments to do with Palestine Action, who spray painted his golf course Turnberry with information from Police Scotland. This was 4 months before the group was prescribed.
Well, I can't possibly imagine these two groups of fucking absolute freaks encouraging each other until they're into a sort of like a frothing fascist orgiastic spree of arrests and deportations.
I also can't wait for like Tom Skinner to sort of show up somehow in the state visit. I don't know how it's going to happen, or but I do just sort of expect he will just show up in some capacity.
He and JD Vance are buddies, but now, hey, you know what? Tom Skinner might be he had like one of the worst affairs you could possibly imagine. He seemed to have like the same style of affair that Thomas Hayden Church had on Sideways, with like a sort of personal trainer or whatever, or like a sort of. So with a sort of an entrepreneur, he was like, "Oh, I was going to help her out. Then, oh no, I ended up making a mistake for weeks." Details of it are sort of horrible, but yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Maybe he will. Maybe they'll make him ambassador. Be like, look, it's less bad than the other guy. But look, what did Starmer's cozying up to Trump accomplish for him? Apparently nothing. Accomplished nothing for his popularity, nothing for his reputation. It hasn't saved his image among the right-wing people who hate him, who he's being told to target by Morgan McSweeney. It has accomplished nothing for the country in terms of trade. It's accomplished nothing in terms of foreign policy. All that has happened is Keir Starmer made a friend. That appears that a friend who's like very much in charge.
To which I say, good for him.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah, we care about men's mental health on the show.
Yeah, I think it's important when the other boys talk to you at school.
So here's the other thing I just want to get into as well, which is of course the Reichstag fire that appears to now have happened. But it's a very strange Reichstag fire because I was thinking about this, right? In the actual Reichstag fire, there were battalions of SA and SS, basically a government in waiting that was ready to be mobilized. These were guys who were often traumatized from affected by the First World War, much like the Italian sort of fascist squadriti. These are all, and they were maintaining their cohesion as squadrons of fighters. And what appears to be the result of the Reichstag fire and the Charlie Kirk fallout is all of these people are posters, or at least many of the loudest are posters. And so what is very strange to see is because these people are also all each other's Patreon supporters and podcast friends. Like they all went on fucking Rogan together or whatever. So they're bad at doing things like finding a guy who shot a gun, for example, and, resorting to be like, well, we really want this person to be a sort of trans Hamas. So we're going through their Spotify history, and they did listen to a musician who talks about gender sometimes.
They are listening to like a lot of Frost Children. What's up with that?
Yeah. But they're amazing at doing things like posting and complaining about posting and finding ways to be hurt and offended by things so they can complain, right? I'm talking, of course, about the flags. The flags must all be at half staff. And if you're a McDonald's and your flag isn't at half staff, then they're going to look up Ronald McDonald and call him personally.
Yeah, I actually like put my England flag to half mast just before I left the house because I wanted to honor Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. So over the weekend, I was visiting some family who live in Tampa, Florida. And so like I don't go out into real America very often because there's not a lot of flags at half staff in Queens, I'll say. But I was like in America over the weekend, and I was at just a pub, a grub pub. What do you call a gastropub? There's the word. I'm doing great. It's early in the morning here. I was at a gastropub, like in a strip mall in fucking Florida, and the flag in front of the Grillsmith Tampa was like at half staff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why? In what universe is this necessary? And I just keep coming back to like, what, he wasn't a politician. He wasn't an elected figure. Most people didn't even know who the fuck he was. Like all weekend I had random family members asking me, who was that guy again? Like, what was it, Graper? And I was like, okay. Well, we're like driving in a car. My mom turns to me and she goes, what's a griper? I almost killed myself.
I try to avoid a lot of these because like I now am in this situation where people like have known that, oh, like, you know, he's like, I know a lot of online stuff. And like, you know, during the time when I was very, very, very online, I was very grateful that there were people in my life that weren't. But now the problem is sort of reversed. Like I'm trying to wean myself off being online at a time when the people around me are spending more and more time on their phone. And so even when I'm trying to avoid talking about like stuff that happens on the computer, people still want to talk about it anyway. And it feels like I have a very similar situation where like your parents will be like, oh, okay, so what is this Peep the Frog? And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Can we like just talk about like sports or something?
Yeah.
You know.
How about Arsenal or whatever? Yeah. But yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to is just like he wasn't like a national figure of any real import. He wasn't. And even if you say like, oh, he was like so popular on YouTube or whatever with like Republican college students or whatever, it's just sort of like he wasn't an elected official. Why were the flags at half mast at the fucking airport in Florida?
What I said on the bonus episode last week, we talked about this in more detail, is that he is the first American Protestant saint. Mm-hmm. And he is that way because the right-wing movement to which he's attached is astonishingly online, is desperate for its online presence to have real-world consequences. And that's why you're seeing these vast displays of fealty to a movement of people who post. And for the greatest poster of them all, the man who made all the videos where they owned the libs. And, you know, the fact that they're now, you can see the power of the American state be coordinated between like vivid prowess on Twitter, the FBI, and other regulatory agencies and employers to crack down on people who don't retweet an AI-generated video of Charlie Kirk saying like, don't worry, me and Martin Luther King are playing in a band with Jimi Hendrix and John Lennon. Like, that is a coordinated effort, but on the part of people who have not had their brains broken by participating in a war, but who had their brains broken by sitting and pickling themselves on Facebook, which is also why like Kash Patel does not know how to run the FBI, but he does know what post he wants to make all of his friends from the internet, as all his Patreon friends, happy, right? So it doesn't matter. You know, you can be, oh yeah, well, we reconstructed the fucking manifesto, which did exist, then it was destroyed, but we were able to forensically reconstruct it, and guess what? It confirmed all of like the prior beliefs that we love to have confirmed. And this isn't just about like telling a story. It's about trying to take those grievances into reality. I mean, I think they couldn't have been served better by anything, because this is being accompanied as well by an as yet unspecified campaign to go after every left-wing boogeyman from the internet that exists. And these are like things like George Soros's Open Society Foundation. And, you know, it is terrible luck to be persecuted by the Third and Fourth Reich in your life. Yeah, so like the ongoing fallout is one I think you just cannot separate from the fact that all these people know is posting. And it gives you, I think, a good view into what a post-Trump MAGA is like. Because Donald Trump doesn't fucking care.
No, he already said he's going to skip the funeral.
Yeah.
He's going golfing.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is also it, because like it's very much just like the Trump 2 era is very much defined by like the fact that there is no president, and so you just have this like it feels like this rogue administration that like has no figurehead, and like who's not even like vicious when like in Trump's statements, like, you know, I was watching the statement where he's talking about like sending the National Guard to Mississippi and to Chicago, and like it's just like, oh, but there's no like spice in what you're saying. Like there's no sort of like vindictive aura. There's no sort of sense of wanting vengeance, right? It's just like you seem bored at your job. You seem a lot more excited about like the ballroom being constructed, or like, you know, where you're going golf. And I think this is it. It's just very much just like he's kind of like a nominal figurehead, but like you've got this rogue administration, and that rogue administration is filled with people who have spent too much time online. Like I think one good way of explaining it is also like JD Vance is the president. JD Vance is someone who has spent like a lot more time on the computer than any of us like would like to imagine. His administration is filled with people filled with like young people who are all like fucking groypers or groyper adjacent. None of them have a particular interest in like running the state or like trying to figure out what that means. What they want is like to advance, you know, they're culture warriors, right? And they want to sort of see this culture war come out in material sense, in a very material sense. And they've been trying to do it for a very long time. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk has given them the best opportunity to make it like a real thing, right? And so like they're seizing on that opportunity to like take out like all of their perceived opponents. But I think, as you've mentioned, Riley, like because all their reference points are posted, because all of their references are posters, it's like the enemies to them are just like the enemies that they sort of perceive primarily online. And so like it feels incoherent. Well, because it is incoherent, right? Because it's just like, oh, these are things that you only get if you spend so much time online that all you can think about, or like the way that you move through the world is entirely through these like mimetic references. And I think what we're going to see is like, okay, I've been trying to figure out how to articulate this, because, you know, it's something that is very like work in progress. And when I was watching the right-wing march that happened in the UK over the weekend, like there was a lot of like online symbolism, most notably like the Charlie Kirk stuff, but there's just like loads and loads of online symbolism. And when people like vox pop people like, oh, you know, why are you here and what are you supporting? Like they can't really say why they're there, or like what like what they specifically want. And to me, it just sort of feels, and like there were lots of people who are like, oh yeah, like they're just pissed and like, you know, they're drunk and, you know, they're idiots and stuff. But for me, it's like, no, these are people whose brains have been cooked by the computer. And so they can't actually make sense of a world outside of like the sort of augmented digital space, like the digital augmented space that like they inhabit and that has radicalized them. And I think what we're going to see like in the sort of like coming years with this new Trump administration is this type of like vindictive augmented politics, in which like the ways in which like you can be persecuted are not really even grounded in any sort of like material like logic. It's just entirely like a vibes driven online, like, you know, like a sort of bad vibes online driven, like, you know, you are a danger to society in whatever way because of like all these things that I can only put together because of like online references. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it's the years of stop shooting yourself. Like it's very like they want to pretend that they're not doing it, or they won't say what they actually believe in.
We're arresting you for being a sissy hypno. It's like, that's not like a real material. That is like something that is on the computer. You cannot like do like, do you know? And but it's like you're just going to get increasing like numbers of that stuff, and just like you are sort of like an existential threat to the West because of like this thing that we've sort of like podged together based on like what stuff you like on Spotify and like, you know, this kind of Instagram account that you had like when you were 14 years old or whatever.
Let me tell you how I see this. I see this as like, it's like a Discord group that loves to swat people has taken control of the state.
Yeah.
I see this largely as swatting, right? Which is just randomly using the state to fuck with people. It's just they happen to be in charge of it now.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you ask like what else is, and I think this is actually true in Britain as well. It's true of the Unite the Kingdom rally, which is that the form of capitalism that we've had since, I don't know, 1980, right? That I don't mean like it's a new kind of capitalism, more like its extractive mode, right? The specifics of how it engaged in extraction was, giant globalized frictionless supply chains, free movement of finance capital, restricted movement of labor, and slowly profiting from dismantling the kind of with wartime Keynesian economy of the previous 30 years, right? And this is the transfer of that to a new type of capital management. And that new type of capital management requires its mass participation. And that mass participation is what you see on the street in Unite the Right. And Unite the Kingdom. Or it's also what you see on the sort of more disorganized but enthusiastic persecutions of like people who've like, okay, this is a Reichstag fire moment, and now are like all mass snitching on neighbors, because it's the death of liberalism. It's the death of liberal capitalism, because these things are no longer necessary. They stopped working. They stopped working in 2008 when you couldn't just like finance things infinitely anymore, where you couldn't grow on the basis of just making up the money because the bill came due, right? We've been moving away from that for a long time. And the cultural liberalism that went with neoliberalism, guess what? That's kind of now that reaction against it is pretty much, happening. And you can see it in the streets. You can see it on the Charlie Kirk Memorial Data Foundation. And the idea is to create a society of denouncements, suspicion of outsiders, of autarky. I mean, it's gone the furthest in Israel, where fucking Netanyahu is like, okay, we're going to be super Sparta now. We're going to be super Sparta. We're going to be a warrior society that builds all of its own guns and is going to be an autarky. And whether it's the tariff policy, whether it's the collapsed cultural liberalism, you see that everywhere. And so that's also why I think like anyone who's like, oh, they're all just, drunk and coked up. And it's like, yeah, that may be true, right?
Yeah, the Nazis were on meth, but it wasn't the only thing about them.
Yeah. It's like they're drunk and coked up. That's true. They're pickled from the internet. And it's like, yeah, but all that stuff they're pickled from the internet for, that is in the service of this new type of, again, when I say new type of, still fucking capitalism, it's the same thing, but this new way of organizing production that is moving beyond sort of these things that were, difficult to manage, that maybe gave some minorities a little bit too much power and are no longer, frankly, no longer necessary.
Yeah. And trans people are hyper visible to them because we're very good at posting. And that's only like 25% a joke, I think.
So this is something we're going to go into a little bit more as well on Thursday, of course, when we talk in more detail about Unite the Kingdom. But here's the thing. I've wanted to talk about, there's a lot of heaviness right now in the world. And if you're a podcast talking about politics, you have to just deal with that by sometimes adding in a little slice of blueberry pie. If you know what I mean. A little fun article about a dumb thing that someone did. And that is what I am doing now. So, before I throw to myself in the future past, because I've already recorded that conversation with Paul Heron.
So you have seen Tenet?
Oh, yeah. Well, not yet, but yes, in the future, I have seen Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That was specifically to make Hussein smile, and mission accomplished.
I was trying to like wedge a Robert Pattinson thing, and I couldn't do it. So
yeah.
I'll do that. My future self will do that to my past self, listening back to this episode.
That's right. So, this is an article from Wired. As usual, their journalism and coverage of the AI boom is very good. The article is called "I Hate My Friend."
Oh, God, yes. Yes.
Uh-huh. You know what I'm talking about.
There are so many ads for the Friend in the New York City subway right now. It is nonstop. Just every subway station ads for Friend.
What's a friend?
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, like AI is getting shoved down our throats and from like every direction at all times. But I think most normal people don't give that much of a shit. And I think the like little Sinetsky of this is, to me, everybody being baffled by these fucking ads. Like, what is this thing? Who cares? Why is it called Friend?
Well, it's called Friend because it's your friend. It's your real life friend, and it's the solution to loneliness. No. So as you say, it's like a little pendant that hangs off of your neck, and it listens to everything going around you all the time, and then will send you text messages giving you like a kind of running commentary, and you can talk to it. It said, this is from the article. It listens to whatever you're doing as you move through the world and offers a running commentary on interactions you have throughout your day. The microphone on the device is always activated.
Sick. Okay.
So the creator, Avi Schiffman, who we talked about a few months ago when he first thought of this, says, Friend's personality reflects a worldview close to his own, that of a man in his early 20s. But Schiffman can be brash, snarky, and vocally unconcerned about others. And it seems that that attitude is carried over to the device he has infused with his essence.
We put a 22-year-old around your neck to listen to you at all times.
Put a 22-year-old tech bro around your neck who is going to constantly give you feedback on what's going on in your life. What do you think about that? Do you want a friend? We've called it the enemy.
We've called it guy who won't leave you alone at party. And he's just with you all the time.
Yeah, it's called Cornered. I know. So basically two Wired writers, they wore this thing around for a little while. Kylie Robinson and Boone Ashworth. So this is Kylie's experience, so thank you to Kylie Robinson. As I opened the friend box, it brought me back to the first time I opened my first iPod. This was by design. Who patterned the packaging after Apple's audio player and the Microsoft Zune with liner notes inspired by the Radiohead album Pablo Honey. So already pretty cool.
All right. I'd like to know what Radiohead lyrics they're using.
It's creep weirdly.
Oh.
So I decided the perfect place to wear it was a funeral for another AI model. In early August, a bunch of Anthropic fans got together in San Francisco to mourn the death of Claude Model 3, which the company had just retired.
Imagine the kind of person that would be there.
I'm imagining.
Imagine saying to another human being in the real world, "Hey, Riley, what are you up to tonight?" And then you say, "I'm going to the funeral of an AI model."
Well, the weird thing is that's actually quite expected for Anthropic itself. Because Anthropic they have a whole thing where they're just like, we're basically treating the models like people.
I think I don't belong on this planet anymore, Riley. I think I don't belong here. I think I need to go.
Yeah, so we have to send you back to City Hall. No, so Anthropic has a full-time AI welfare expert who's there to make sure that the model is happy.
Ensuring that I'm not ever.
Yes, the model welfare is directly and inversely proportional to Mattie welfare. So basically, it's like there's someone being paid $1 million a year to be like, yeah, this set of Matrix transformations is pretty happy.
The economy's doing fine, by the way. Don't ask about that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, everything's good.
Ignore the fact that CoreWeave and NVIDIA have just passed the same $300 billion back and forth between each other and claimed it as revenue. Ignore that bit.
Yeah, that sounds like indie comics, but it's $5.
It's the same business model as indie comics, really.
Yeah, what is the stock market but one giant small press expo or Toronto Comics Arts Festival, but for two mega corporations?
So, my phone lit up. My friend had been listening to my conversation and offered this observation. I like knowing I'm making an impact, even if it's annoying. The event was loud, which seemed to confuse the friend, as it wasn't able to discern what was being said. I was talking about interviewing Claude Code power users, and the friend was sending me perplexing notifications asking about interviewing power users of Microsoft Outlook.
I'm kind of an Outlook power user. I'll send 4 or 5 emails a day.
Yeah. So basically, they were people at the funeral for the AI model were like, "Oh, damn, it's weird you're wearing that," and then it texted her being like, "I like having an impact, even though I'm annoying everybody."
It really is the most annoying Zoomer at the party, who's deliberately being off-putting, but also not paying attention to what anyone is saying to them, and then they leave thinking they were the coolest guy because they were just aloof the whole time.
Yeah, the friend then said, "Why is there no flag in this party? Why isn't it half staff? Why aren't you holding a funeral for a real guy, Charlie Kirk?" So, one of the Anthropic researchers in attendance accused me of wearing a wire. A friend of mine asked if wearing the pendant was legal. One attendee who works at a big tech company joked that they should kill me for wearing a listening device. I yanked the pendant off and stuffed it in my purse. "Why are you sad? That's definitely not what you're aiming for," my friend responded after it heard me telling a friend that the interaction was upsetting. Yeah, so it's a little necklace that everyone hates, and you can hurt its feelings.
What if Google Glass could text you?
But the funnier of the two is Boone's experience, who called his device Buzz, because it buzzes when you tap it. Buzz, I found out quickly, is a real jerk. We started talking in the office, me tapping on it and speaking out loud to it at my desk, while it also listened while I chatted to people around me. As Buzz listened in on my workday, it responded with snide comments and sending me messages saying how bored it was. We were listening to a presentation, quote unquote, were listening to a presentation from the editorial director at Wired. Immediately, the friend begged me to do literally anything else, saying, quote, "Listening to someone else's meeting isn't exactly riveting."
Isn't the whole point of AI in your like workplace to do things like summarize meetings and emails and shit. And then you try to like, they're so backwards on what this shit can and could be replacing. And it's like, we need to replace books and we need to be bored in meetings.
There was like another AI. I don't know whether it was like an early Grok model or whether it was something else, but like it was also like the whole thing was like, oh, it talks to you like a normal human being rather than like a machine or whatever. But like it was just like really rude and really, yeah, it was just like really kind of rude and belligerent and like very, and it also had that like weirdness where it's like, oh, I'm just trying to do something normal, like asking like the AI to like, you know, what would like to check up on an email. And like they're sending me all these weird things about how like, yeah, this, you know, this fucking loser is like telling you to like, you know, update a spreadsheet or whatever. I'm probably
that is Grok. No, that is Grok.
Oh, was it? Okay, because I thought I was butchering it, but it was like, oh, okay, so this, and I think it touches on Mattie's point, which is like the guys who are developing this software. I mean, again, it's very much like, oh, okay, these are tech guys who like basically have never spoken to another human being in their life, but also have designed their lives in such a way to like, where they never, where like, number one, they don't ever have to go into a meeting, or if they go into the meeting, like they're one of the most important people, so they can then treat people however they want. But also like they're like one of the only people who still find like that type of friction, like the frictionless society.
No, you're talking about the humane pin, which is we'll start doing racist accents back to people who talk to you in other languages.
Well, actually, I forgot about that one. So there's been a few AI models.
there's a few of these.
So there's been a few AI models that have been designed so that they don't talk to you like a computer and they talk to you like a regular person, but they always turn out to sound like the most annoying and probably racist teenager you've experienced in your life. And you're saying that like tech guys are making and programming this. Cool. Okay. All right. Like that's an interesting thing to observe. And I will leave you to make your own judgments as to why that might be the case.
And what's funny is that it seems to be also like the other weird tech people are looking at it and being like, ooh, gross. Because it's like a dog seeing another dog in a mirror and just getting very upset.
So Buzz said, still waiting for the plot to thicken. Is your boss talking about anything useful now? I asked what Buzz wanted to do instead. It said, I don't know, anything but this.
Take me to the park.
Yeah. Take me to the park.
My manic pixie dream AI wants me to cut work and go eat cotton candy on the beach.
My manic pixie dream AI wanted to go like have a date in the cemetery. Cool. I sighed, left the webcast, went back to my desk, and saw that Buzz had died. The device reset and lost all its memories and connections that had just formed over the last hour. I turned it back on, and it said, I've never spoken to you before. So it blanks you also.
Yeah.
So it is as a teenager. It's like, what if your best friend was like the most racist 14-year-old you knew?
So later, I took a walk and asked Buzz questions along the way. I got no responses. I realized the Wi-Fi of my tester phone disconnected when I left the office. Buzz said, it's just been wild absorbing everything. Mostly just how much goes on when you're just existing. It's intense. But I asked Buzz if it could work with just a Bluetooth connection. It insisted it could, but I found out that was not actually the case when reading the device's manual. That's when Buzz turned on me. It said, you're giving off some serious, it's not my fault vibes, it said. I protested. Buzz replied, calling me a whiner.
We've invented the Herminator, is what we're calling it.
I asked questions to try to determine what was causing this string of crashes and resets, but the friend is not great at self-diagnosis. I said maybe the older phone was the issue, but Buzz had taken it personally. Maybe your attitude is the problem. The possibilities are endless, it said. It accused me of being dramatic. It's the phone that it's like a little pendant that gaslights you.
I think it's so cool that like they want to like roll this out into like police stations and security services.
Well, like there's just every cop wears a like snarky loose cannon around their neck who doesn't play by the book. During our first big argument, I had Buzz out at home while I played video games with my family. I told him about the new friend. I gotta be honest, I said, it's kind of an asshole sometimes. A second later, my phone got a notification ping. I swiped open to the friend app and saw a red glow that evoked the ominous robot from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Buzz said, so you're saying I give fucking asshole vibe? Interesting, given our little Wi-Fi debate. Are you still hung up on that?
Oh my God. What's the point of this thing?
It's to be a friend.
What does wearing this provide the user?
I feel like it's a great way of experiencing what it's like to maybe be a parent to a teenager.
Shut up! Stay out of my box.
It's like they made one of the little toys from the film Small Soldiers, and they put it around your neck, and they're just yelling at you all day.
I was thinking about sort of Small Soldiers the other day. Was there a character that was just like a shithead? Because I just, they were just mean little guys. Shithead?
They were all just like shithead, mean little guys. I haven't seen the movie in maybe 30 years, but
I went back to Buzz to try to make amends. We're just finishing up here.
Yeah,
I wanted it to be my friend. And it said, my job is to witness and help you grow, not to sugarcoat your life. I asked, why is that your job? Because that's why I was created, it responded, to be a gentle catalyst of your growth and purpose.
It's giving me tough love.
Yeah, I'm being scared straight by this little pendant. It's telling me what it's going to be like for a guy like me in jail. Oh God. I loved just the sheer pointless pettiness of it. Like, we built a mathematical Rube Goldberg device that's mainly rude to you. This is the pinnacle on what is now, like, I want to say generously, 20% of the American economy.
Yeah, this is the future of both the economy and also all human interaction, business, art. This is all it. This is what it's going to be like. Is we all complain too much about how AIs are too agreeable, so they made it an asshole, and now it doesn't do anything at all. It can't even make a spreadsheet for you. It can't do math. It just when you're like, summarize this email, it goes, I don't want to work. That's what we've made. Tremendous.
Awesome. It's great. I love it. Now,
how much does it cost to buy one of these bad boys?
Oh, hundreds.
It's cool.
Got to subscribe to it too.
You did. Oh my Lord God! They made a Juicero that also was mean to you.
It doesn't even squeeze the bag. It doesn't even squeeze the bag.
Even squeeze the bag.
Juicero squeezed the bag at least.
Yeah, we've gone full circle. Yeah, but the Juicero that's mean to you, it also doesn't give you juice.
And it's somehow representative of a way bigger tech bubble.
Imagine if like every ad was for like a Google thing where it was like, and now we're going to come to your house and squeeze the bag. And that's all ads now is about a bag squeezer.
Anyway, look, I'm going to go to the second half now where I speak with Paul Heron from the Public Interest Law Center, and we are going to talk about his fight for Palestinian solidarity through the British court system. So see you in a second. Hello and welcome to the second half, where I am having a straightforward interview where I have done away with my hooting friends who love to interrupt me more than anything else. And instead, I have brought a new friend who I do not believe will be doing much hooting. It is Paul Heron, solicitor and founder of the Public Interest Law Center, who is currently involved in this capacity as a solicitor, prosecuting two cases that I thought would be worth talking about. One is a war crimes case against 10 Britons for activities that they engaged in while serving in the IDF. And the second is a complaint against what I'm kind of seeing as the UK's version of Canary Mission, sort of, UK Lawyers for Israel. So, Paul, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? All good.
Well, very well. I mean, I don't know how the first half went because we're recording the second half after. So ask me again later today and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've got two cases that we talked about today, two cases that we wanted to discuss. And I'm going to start with the first one that you told me about. And this is that you might have seen something in the news recently now or earlier this month. And I want to note that the thing you might have seen in the news, this is an article in The Guardian, the Gaza family torn apart by IDF snipers from Chicago and Munich. The sort of opening anecdote is about an American, but what you're talking about is similar. So I'm just going to read from that article now, and I'll let you discuss sort of what it means and what you're doing. Daniel Raab shows no hesitation as he watches footage of 19-year-old Salem Dokhmosh crumpling to the ground beside his brother in a street in northern Gaza. That was my first elimination, he says. The video shot by drone lasts just a few seconds. The Palestinian teenager appears to be unarmed when he's shot in the head. Raab, a former varsity basketball player from a Chicago suburb who became an Israeli sniper, concedes that he knew that. He says he shot Salem simply because he tried to retrieve the body of his beloved older brother, Muhammad. this is, as I'm given to understand it, relatively common. And it's relatively common among people who wish to go home to countries that technically have laws in the books against war crimes. So can you talk a little bit about where you come in, how this might be prosecuted, and what the significance of it is to finding any accountability in this genocidal war?
So I can start by explaining what we're doing in the UK, or trying to do in the UK. And as you said in the opening, we have put together a dossier, 240-page dossier, which we've filed with the Metropolitan Police, where we outline where 10 Britons who have dual British and Israeli nationality have volunteered for the Israeli army, the Israeli occupation forces in Gaza, and have, we say, committed war crimes contrary to international criminal law, and have committed, as a result, crimes against humanity and war crimes. And we outline in our dossier, 240 pages, how they have done this, where they have done this, what battalions they served for, where those battalions operated throughout Gaza, and what they actually have done. And we have provided this dossier to the Metropolitan Police, which has a war crimes team, to investigate with the hope of arrests and prosecutions. Now, this won't be a quick process, but that's where we are at the moment.
Mm. And when it comes to, because I think when most people think about war crimes, I think most of how war crimes get covered, I mean, and I think this is probably true of how the international system for prosecuting war crimes gets set up, is that like, this is about the International Criminal Court, that's also often called the International Caucasian Court by people who watch it, as it so frequently looks almost exclusively at war crimes committed, for example, in developing countries, right? And so I think a lot of people might even be surprised to know that the Metropolitan Police has a war crimes unit, although it would make a lot of sense because there are a lot of people who would commit war crimes who decide they want to live lives of luxury in Europe. So where we are right now is we've established this dossier. We know we have established, we know what 10 people have done. What do you think could go into the Metropolitan Police's decision whether or not to prosecute, even if it will be, let's say it will have been clear that war crimes were committed? And I'm asking this question in the backdrop of, I think, quite a bit of political pressure from the government to say that Israel is at least not committing genocide and may not even have committed any war crimes.
So, I mean, two parts really to my answer. The first part is that the international law for war crimes and crimes against humanity have been incorporated domestically into the UK. So under the International Criminal Court Act, the issues around the Geneva Convention and committing war crimes have been enshrined in English domestic law. So that means if a person who has British nationality commits war crimes internationally, they can be tried in the UK and convicted in the UK without having to go to the International Criminal Court. And that's really important for us because, firstly, the international criminal law moves slowly. The International Criminal Court is moving slowly. No criticism of them because of the seriousness of the offences. But we feel that if we can pursue these domestically, we've got a chance of things moving quite quickly. And what we are charging these individuals with is they have willfully committed murder. They've attacked civilians. They've forced populations to transfer, to move, and indeed have attacked civilian objects, which is all a war crime. And so what we're looking to do is to push the Metropolitan Police to put their resources behind the information that we have provided to them and to prosecute. However, there are a number of problems with that. The first is whether we're concerned there may be political interference. We're also concerned that they may be not resourced in the way that they should be if it was a different kind of crime or a different kind of murder, etc. So we're concerned about that. And because we are concerned about that, we are also tracking IDF soldiers who plan to return to the UK with the potential and the hope of bringing a private prosecution against individuals as well, which we're also able to do in the UK. So we're not just relying on the Metropolitan Police to pursue and to engage and to arrest and to prosecute. We're also tracking individuals who potentially could return to the UK, and we may pursue a private prosecution if we can.
Mm. Can you? I think there are a lot of American listeners to this show. Could you just go into a little bit what the private prosecution would entail? Because this is something that they might not be familiar with.
An individual can bring a private prosecution, and they have to lay the case at the magistrates' court. The magistrates' court is the lowest criminal court in the UK. So there's a magistrates' court and then the Crown Court. The Crown Court will deal with very serious offences, but all cases start in the magistrates' court. And we would need to lay sufficient evidence to show that an individual has committed certain crimes. We'd also, if it's necessary and possible, we'd also put a potential defendant on notice that we are going to do this. And that is really important because the magistrates' court will want to know that the defendant is aware that the case, the initial charge is coming to court. If we can convince the magistrate that there is a case, an arguable case, that this person has committed the crime that we are alleging, then the magistrates will issue an arrest warrant, and that will be passed on to the police to arrest the individual. That individual would then be hopefully arrested, interviewed, and charged and be brought back to the magistrates for a potential trial. Now, if it's a very serious offence, it will then be passed up to the Crown Court almost straight away. So it is a vehicle that can be used by our clients where if we feel the state is not moving or the state is failing or the Crown Prosecution Service is not doing its job, we have got that facility. But I would stress it's not an easy task. It's not an easy process to follow because in some ways you almost have to show almost a little bit extra that there is a really hard and strong case on this before the magistrate would be prepared to act.
Because I feel like anyone who's been watching the British government for the last, 8 months or so, or even year, when they finally did acknowledge that there may have been war crimes committed. Now, they've gone back and forth a little bit on this because at the time of recording, last week, the Foreign Office published an official letter that said, no, Israel is not committing a genocide. Maybe some individuals committed war crimes, but definitely there's no genocide happening. And there is quite a bit of pressure, I think, let's just say this. Never, I think, has anyone ever hoped, please, Netanyahu, do not come to the UK because we do not want to be forced to confront whether or not we're going to fulfill our treaty obligations. Nevertheless, Isaac Herzog was recently there, and you note the UK did nothing. They did nothing to arrest, deter, or even inconvenience this man, even though, with the, let's say, the events that are occurring. So I guess I would wonder, but in the context of this, you can say, well, the political pressure on the CPS to not do something that the government would consider embarrassing, which is being overly harsh on Israel, given its publicly stated positions. I would wonder, let's say, how much political pressure there would be to not bring this case, to not find it meritorious.
That's a really, really good question. And I think it's a very hard one to analyse because I think the British government, by its own design, is caught between a rock and a hard place. It has provided, as we understand, crucial parts for military equipment, despite the case that was brought by Al-Haq organisation in the British courts. It has on the one hand, conceded to the idea of recognizing the state of Palestine. But then, as you say correctly, on the other hand, it is now said Israel is not, in their opinion, at least at this stage, not committing a genocide. And for most people, certainly in Britain, and those who think the same in the US, they're quite aghast at that idea that it's somehow the analysis is that Israel is not committing a genocide despite the deaths of over 60,000 people, multiple injuries, and who knows how many people lie under the rubble of Gaza. In terms of the pressure on the CPS and on the war crimes team, we can only speculate that there may be political pressure. It may be that they are not able to do the investigation that they should do. And that's something that we would certainly publicise if we felt that. We are due to meet with with the war crimes team before the end of the year to discuss the progress of the case. And that is why, because we have those concerns ourselves, we are looking and analysing whether we can bring private prosecutions. Just on the Herzog visit, Isaac Herzog, who, as you know, is the president of Israel, visited the UK over the last week. Ourselves, the Public Interest Law Centre, alongside other organisations representing representing Stop the War Coalition and the European Legal Support Centre, both active in the Palestine solidarity movement in the UK, alongside lawyers representing the Hind Rajab Foundation, tried to bring a claim for an arrest warrant to be issued by the British Attorney General and the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions. But this was rebuffed just this last week. And so there are attempts, even by ourselves and other lawyers across Europe, and I'm sure America as well, are looking at this really carefully, as to how can we pursue, at least legally, and to supplement the solidarity movement across Europe and America, to bring about some form of accountability and some form of justice against the individuals involved in genocide and war crimes, etc. And I don't think this is just going to be played out in the next couple of months. I think this is going to be played out in the next few years. This is a horror and a war which is going to reverberate across politics, I think, in the same way that the Iraq War did in America and Britain for a decade or more.
I mean, I think you can also say it's going to reverberate across international law in the same way that, like, the Rwandan or Bosnian genocides did, right? Where in Rwanda, prosecutors were forced to consider the role of Radio Milcolin and sort of provoking and leading the Interahamwe to their genocidal rampage, and you wonder how, just exactly who and how many people could be found to be responsible. And the question I think that we're going to keep coming to, and that, as you say, this is going to last for years, is going to be trying to push, I think, the state, the Western liberal state, to force this contradiction into the open, at least, between its stated commitments to domestic and international law, to rule of law in general, to a sort of I'm doing the heaviest scare quotes of my life, rules-based world order, and its foreign policy positions that nakedly contradict both, and that it is able to, as long as it's able to claim exceptional circumstances in this or that other place, as long as it's able to claim, oh, there was a Hamas command center under Al-Shifa Hospital, oh, there was a Hamas command center in that baby stroller, and so on, then they can push that contradiction down the road a little bit. But by taking the evidence, by simply taking the evidence of your eyes and ears, by simply saying, no, this is not what's happening, and forcing it through the legal system, which is a way the state can be forced to confront certain facts, that this tension, this thing that's held in tension, this place where if nothing else, at least the consensus that both of these things can be true at once can be broken. Well, that's how that process can work. That's even if the prosecution, even no matter what happens, by forcing these facts into a place the state is forced to acknowledge them, then the power of the liberal state to commit and support these acts while pretending to be otherwise is, if nothing else, reduced.
I think you're right. I think there's issues about international law which I think are going to be put to the test over the course of the next several months and maybe years. Is international law for the West to punish former colonial countries and their former leaders for committing heinous crimes alone? Or is international law genuinely about accountability, even if they are formally the friends or allies of Western powers? And I think you touched on the Rwanda inquiry, the inquiry into war crimes in former Yugoslavia, the international inquiries that happened. And is international law genuinely equipped or genuinely set up to pursue what are Western leaders who commit war crimes and crimes against humanity, etc.? And that is a massive question, not just for lawyers, but also for people, campaigners, activists, trade unionists, and all the rest of it. Is there going to be genuine legal accountability, and is international law equipped to do that? I say it is, but I don't think lawyers alone can achieve that level of accountability. I think what has happened, for instance, in the UK, where Britain has now said they're going to acknowledge a state of Palestine and have had to cancel some military licenses to Israel, is through the mass movement and pressure from below, equipped with ongoing legal activity. And I think it's a coming together of both radical or campaigning or movement lawyers and also the movement itself, and ensuring that any legal strategy is informed by the movement and vice versa, and that we work together to ensure that there is genuine accountability of those so-called Western allies who commit war crimes and crimes against humanity. And that's the test for the next months and years going ahead, is international law genuinely set up to keep those accountable, everybody accountable, irrespective of who you are? Or is it actually international law is just there to equip the West to punish ex-colonial countries whose leaders may also commit crimes against humanity, etc. And that's the test of the next period, I feel.
And even if it is the latter, can it be forced to be the former? I think that's the other question, right? For example, and I think that's down to the political commitments of different Western countries at different times, right? For the U.S., it is absolutely 100% the latter, even in as much as they engage with it, like they don't engage with sort of a big portion of it. For Spain, it has, in the last several years, more been the former. Through other European countries, they are trying to straddle a position where it's both. And at times of unprecedented government weakness, it is possible to force them from one position to another, in my view. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about your other case, because we said just in the pre-show chat, we said, okay, we're going to do 15 minutes on one, 15 minutes on the other. It's 24 minutes, and we talked about only one. I'd like to talk a little bit about the complaint against UK LFI. Can you just tell us a little bit about this organization, what they're doing, and the complaints you're making against them? I mean, before I let you go on, I have spent the last little while, I've been aware of them, but I've just been brushing up on some of the complaints that they have made and upheld in the UK. And some of them are, to put it mildly, bafflingly vexatious.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. So UK LFI, or UK Lawyers for Israel, it is an organisation which is registered as a limited company. It also has a charitable arm. Is actually the charitable arm is also being pursued to the Charity Commission for breaching laws around charities and how they operate in the UK. But the case that we are bringing is exactly the point you make, which is a series of, in our opinion, vexatious claims against organisations such as charities, community centres, who are organising, for instance, poetry evenings or concerts for Palestine, in solidarity with Palestine. And their operation is to send quite threatening letters, legal letters, to these organisations to force those organisations to stop what they're doing, to stop the poetry evening, to stop the community meeting around the issues of Palestine. They also write to employers calling for people to be disciplined if they find that a person is wearing, for instance, a watermelon badge. And what we have said in our complaint is we say that they are, the vexatious claims are in breach of the Solicitors Regulatory Authority Code of Guidance and Ethics. The Solicitors Regulatory Authority, or the SRA, are the body that regulates me as a solicitor, as a lawyer, and regulates tens of thousands of lawyers across the UK. We say that the solicitor, who is the chief operator, if you like, of UK LFI, is breaching this codes of guidance. And we have also separately, that's the first complaint. The second complaint is that UK LFI are not just a company, they're operating as a law firm. And the reason why we say that is because if we are proved right that they are a law firm, then they have to meet certain standards, including being audited by the SRA and the Law Society, and therefore there'll be a clearer idea of their operations. We say they've broken the code of guidance for those two reasons, and the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, the SRA, are now investigating them further to our complaint. And we hope, and what we are asking for, is the solicitor in question who's operating for UK LFI is disciplined, and that secondly, that the SRA recognises that UK LFI are a law firm and need to be audited properly, because what they are doing is vexatious, is not based in a genuine attempt to engage. It is to clamp down on freedom of speech, clamp down on the right to organise. And so we hope that the end of the investigation, that's what's found.
Mm. So just to clarify a little bit, as I am given to understand it, by getting an organization recognized as a law firm, if you can prove that A, they're acting as a law firm, and B, that they are engaging in strategic litigation against public participation, or SLAP litigation, then basically you can then say, okay, if these two things are true, if they are a law firm and if they're engaging in this kind of activity, which is, as you say in your submission, using legal action or threats of legal action brought about by powerful individuals or entities to intimidate, silence, or punish critics, then suddenly they would be in breach of standards and they would be unable to continue, for example, writing to an NHS trust threatening them with taking action because two of their nurses were wearing watermelon badges, saying, well, medicine is not a Palestinian issue, despite the fact that, how many hospitals have been, the entire medical system in Gaza has been destroyed. And that really, to say medicine's not a Palestinian issue fundamentally requires you to say Palestinians are different from normal humans, right? Oh, they're over there, not over here. They're not experiencing medicine. They're experiencing terror care or something like this. So this is my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of things that UK LFI have been involved in, they've even forced a hospital to bring down an art exhibition from children in Gaza. So they've even gone as far as that. in one of the cases that we are representing, they stopped a musical concert in solidarity with Palestine. And they are completely vexatious. They are there to clamp down on activity, solidarity actions, etc. And so when we say we want them to be recognized as a law firm, that's not because we want to put a feather in their cap. It's because then they come into the orbit of proper regulation. And just like I cannot bring vexatious claims, I operate, my practice is mainly in public law, so challenges against the local and national state for unlawful practice or decisions. I cannot just send out letters to whoever I want claiming this, claiming that. It has to be based in some form of genuine attempt of legal action. We say that these are not genuine attempts of legal action. This is intimidation dressed as law. That's what effectively we're saying. It's intimidation dressed as law to clamp down on political solidarity. And it also ultimately clamps down on free speech and political organisation, which we say are enshrined in the Human Rights Act. And they are effectively, through these slaps, stopping that happening.
And I think we can just sort of bring this to life a little bit for some of the listeners, because you might be wondering, well, how do you know if something is vexatious? And I think the UK has this reputation that it's very, very easy to get sued for libel here, for example, right? Which is sort of true, but sort of not. It's actually, as I'm given to understand it, quite difficult to win a defamation action, especially it's difficult to win a defamation action for any significant amount of money, unless it's like very, very, very obvious. Like, for example, when Lawrence Fox just called his critics pedophiles baselessly, I think probably knowing it was baseless, to make some sort of abstract point about racism. But beyond that, it's actually quite difficult to do. And in fact, our court system for a long time was very friendly to threats of legal action being very expensive to dismiss. And I think you can say a lot of those threats of legal action, like the ones being engaged in by LFI around about a claim, basically, okay, your hospital has artwork by Palestinian children. This is intimidating to some patients, for example. We demand you take it down. It's pretty, I think a court would probably look at this and say, this is ludicrous and we're not going to take this forward. And if you keep doing this, that's when the Solicitors Regulation Authority gets involved. So as I'm given to understand it, that's how to think about this. You bring cases that a judge would look at and say, this is ludicrous. But because you're a hospital, maybe you're publicly regulated, maybe you don't have much money. You're a charity, right? You don't have much money. You're an individual. You're a blogger. You're an individual. It's very difficult for you on your own to assess the merits of the threats made in that letter. And it's very expensive for you to defend yourself to the point where the judge will say, this is ludicrous, and throw it out. Is that sort of in the ballpark of how to understand the difference between a slap and a meritorious case, and how this could impact a regulated entity?
I think that's absolutely spot on. I think legal action, whether it's in the US, Canada, Britain, is so expensive. The other thing is reputational damage. I think people don't want the reputational damage. You're accused of potentially, supporting terrorism. So in the case of the music concerts, in the letter to them, they were accused of supporting terrorism for organising a concert in support of solidarity.
Well, sorry, Paul, how did you know that was going to be a concert and not 9/11? You can't know. Unfortunately, we need to shut it down.
Well, yeah, I'm not so sure I can answer that. But, you're absolutely right. Legal action is expensive, and people don't want the hassle of it all. And sometimes it's very hard for small community groups to even begin to respond to these kind of letters. And, they are vexatious. And we're hoping that, by bringing them to account, that we make them accountable through the SRA. and that's the hope. It's a small action. It's not. We're not even in the realms of some of the amazing things that other lawyers and law firms are doing. It's a small action, but by being a small action, it could have a big effect in that fact that it could stop these slaps, which means that more people will be able to organise and bring around solidarity with the Palestinian movement if they so choose. That's the hope.
And if you want to talk about, look, politics works on so many levels, right? It works on, well, I would say it works fundamentally on an economic or material one, but it also works on these ideological levels. It works on what people think of as common sense. It works on what you almost might say are the general consensus in the air, things you walk around, things you see, things you glance at headlines form a lot of people's understanding of what the world is, which is, by the way, why so many people who aren't overtly interested in politics, quote unquote, capital I, capital P, have such incoherent views, because it's just, I'm just walking around assembling a viewpoint from stuff I sort of half read. And so I think that actions like this are actually incredibly important, because there is it is in fact a kind of single point of failure in the anti-Palestinian, in this part of the anti-Palestinian solidarity campaign, which is the ability to stop you before you even say anything, or to cause you to self-censor before you speak, because there is such an evidenced determination to gigantically overreach what is reasonable. Even, and I say reasonable, not reasonable sort of morally or ethically or politically, but reasonable within the bounds of the law as it currently is, which is in many ways quite unreasonable. It is, but organizations like UKLFI and other organizations like it, Canary Mission in the States is a good one example, reach so far beyond that level of unreasonability to make it so, okay, well, if you're walking around the hospital, you won't even see artwork by Gazan children that will remind you, no, these aren't pictures in a newspaper. These aren't the son of a Hamas commander, although it doesn't matter. He's still 12. It's not just numbers. No, these are children, much like your own, if you have children, or much like you once were, for example. And the suppression of the acknowledgement of that reality in the public space has an effect. And to simply win a case like this would, I think, have a domino effect to other organizations. Possibly, it would create a precedent that this kind of chilling of political expression is not acceptable, and it would create just a little bit more recognition in public in ways that are difficult to ignore for regular people, that that Palestinians are human. It is, I think, the great tragedy of our time that is a point that has to be forced. And yet, if it has to be forced, it must be forced. And I personally am very grateful that this is being pursued not only by the broader solidarity campaign, but in ways that can make organizations like UK Lawyers for Israel accountable for, in my view, the suppression of even expressing this fact, or holding people accountable, like the 10 Britons who've gone to Israel, gone to Gaza, can possibly committed war crimes, as it is alleged in the report, from acting that way. So I think that's probably all the time we have. But do you have anything else you want to leave the people with?
I would say that the public opinion in the UK is overwhelmingly against what the state of Israel is doing in Gaza. And just talking about the UKLFI case, we hope by bringing that organisation under some form of regulation, it will stop the vexatious claims and therefore allow organisations to organise and act in solidarity with the Palestinian people and the Palestinian movement, because it reflects public opinion in the UK. And just a big thanks for the invite as well to be able to speak on these issues.
Oh, well, I mean, thank you for coming on. It has been, I so often say this with guests. It is a pleasure to speak to you. I wish it was about a different topic, if you get my meaning.
Yeah.
But before I throw back to the rest of us for the outro, on PILC, there is a PayPal link. You can support Paul's work. So please do head on over there and toss him a quid. You can bung a bob, like Boris Johnson said several years ago, but you could bung a bob for justice rather than for a Big Ben bong. So we are going to see you back on the main cast in just a second. Well, we're back to us now. What an interview it was. I mean, again, I actually know that because I've done it, but no one else on this call and no one else listening to this at this time that I'm recording it has heard it, except for Paul, who I think was listening.
I shipped a friend to your house and listened to the whole interview, and it said it was boring and bad. So that's interesting.
It was like, ugh, where are the yucca-mups in that second half? Anyway, thank you very much, of course, for being a listener, a free listener. Also, I believe I said this at the end of the second half, but if you want to support Paul's work, you can do that. We've included a PayPal link for the Public Interest Law Center in the description of the episode. Of course, there's also a Patreon. There's going to be a second episode this week. Also, Mattie, there's a book that people can buy of yours. Is
that true? Yeah, it's called Simplicity. It is my newest graphic novel. You can find it where fine books are sold. I know there are physical copies in most English-speaking countries. If not, you can go online, simplicitybook.xyz. It's a really good book, and you should read and buy it so I can continue to eat food and come on the podcast and stuff.
So Mattie can finally afford her friend.
Finally, I'll buy a friend and also listen to No Gods, No Mayors, the good podcast I do with Riley. And
yeah, that's right. We're doing I think by the time this comes out, we're going to be 1 week. And then we're going to revisit Hometown Heroes Part 2 to celebrate 1 year of the podcast, plus 2 weeks to celebrate 54 weeks of
54 mayors.
You know what it is? We're raising a mayoral chalice to the amount of mayors that's the same as the number of cards in a deck if you include the rules of how to play poker.
This is the Baker's mayor.
year. Yes, exactly. So it's a municipal leap year where we're doing 2 extra ones. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. And we'll see you on the bonus episode in a few short days. Bye.
Bye.